Across the world, long before borders and modern nations existed, ancient civilizations built their lives with slow patience and timeless rhythms. Their days followed the rising and setting of the sun, the movement of rivers, the cycle of seasons, and the steady patterns of the stars. These ancient foundations remind us that human life has always been part of something older, something calm, something larger than stress or worry. The world has existed for billions of years, and humanity has walked across its surface for only a small fragment of that time, moving carefully, learning gradually, and leaving behind stories carved in stone. One of the most remarkable truths about ancient civilizations is how long their structures have survived. The pyramids of Giza have been standing for more than 4,000 years, silently watching the desert wind pass. Empires have risen and fallen, languages have faded, cities have been built and rebuilt, yet those vast triangular forms remain untouched by panic. Their foundations were placed stone by stone with absolute intention, each block weighing tons yet lifted calmly into place by human hands. When you look at them today, you're seeing the result of millions of moments of patience. And this patience is something the ancient world teaches again and again. In Mesopotamia, the Sumerians built the first known cities along the slow rivers of the Tigris and Euphrates. These rivers followed the same timeless path for thousands of years, carving the soil gently, watering crops, and feeding entire cultures. The Sumerians observed their environment carefully, creating the first writing system not with urgency, but with slow marks on wet clay that dried into permanent records. Their tablets were meant to endure the quiet march of time. Some of these writings still exist today, their wedge-shaped impressions unchanged after millennia. It reminds us that the world does not move as quickly as our thoughts often do. Time is steady. The universe is patient. Far to the east, ancient China rose around the Yellow River, a place where entire dynasties lasted longer than many modern countries have been around. The Zhou dynasty, for example, lasted nearly 800 years. For perspective, that is longer than the entire history of the United States. During that time, people farmed, cooked, raised children, studied the stars, and wrote poetry about the quietness of nature. They believed in harmony, a balance between humans and the world around them, a belief carried across countless generations. When you imagine people from long ago sitting beside lantern light, writing calmly on silk scrolls, you realize humans have always sought peace, meaning, and stability. In India, the Indus Valley civilization built cities so advanced that their drainage systems rival modern plumbing. Their streets were carefully aligned, their homes were uniform, and their society valued cleanliness and order. They had no need for dramatic monuments or oversized statues. Their greatness came from balance, design, and routine. The people who lived there walked slowly through streets made of baked brick, lived next to neighbors they likely knew since childhood, and followed seasonal rhythms that gave structure to their lives. When archaeologists discovered these cities thousands of years later, the quiet symmetry of their engineering still felt tranquil and purposeful. Across the Mediterranean, the ancient Greeks built temples that have stood for over 2,000 years. Even though wars and weather have worn them down, the columns still rise proudly, reflecting the mathematical harmony that Greek architects believed in. They studied geometry not just to solve problems but to understand beauty. To them, the world itself had a natural order, and human beings could find peace by aligning themselves with that order. This belief shaped their philosophy. Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle spent their days walking slowly, discussing ideas under the open sky, trusting in conversation and calm thinking. Their lessons still shape modern thought, linking our present to a long tradition of seeking wisdom through stillness. Farther west, the Roman Empire built roads that stretched for 50,000 miles across continents. These roads were laid stone by stone, engineered to last not just for one lifetime but for centuries. Some can still be walked on today. No rush, no shortcuts, just deliberate craftsmanship. Roman aqueducts carried water across mountains and valleys with perfect slope and precision, using nothing but gravity. These structures whisper to us that stable systems can be built slowly, with care, and once they are built well, they can last far beyond anything we imagine. In ancient Egypt, scribes spent years memorizing symbols and mastering the art of writing. Their scrolls recorded everything from daily routines to royal ceremonies. What makes this remarkable is how much they valued consistency. Their writing system barely changed over thousands of years. If an Egyptian scribe from the year 2000 BCE somehow walked into the library of a scribe from 300 BCE, they would still understand the symbols perfectly. This level of long-term continuity is rare in human history. It shows that people once lived generation after generation in a world that felt stable, familiar, and lasting. Meanwhile, in the Americas, civilizations like the Maya observed the stars with breathtaking accuracy. Without telescopes, they tracked planetary cycles that modern scientists later confirmed to be correct. Their entire calendar system was based on cycles that repeated predictably. They didn't fear the unknown. They studied it patiently. They believed time was a circle, not a line. And circles have no rush. They keep moving quietly. The ancient world teaches something powerful about time. Mountains rise slower than fingernails grow. Rivers carve canyons over millions of years. Civilizations build, fall, and rebuild at a pace the universe barely notices. And when you see human history from that wide perspective, the noise of the present grows quiet. Anxiety shrinks. Stress loses its grip. Because you realize that everything you feel right now is just a moment, and moments pass. Ancient civilizations show us that humans are capable of creating stability, beauty, and order even with limited tools. They remind us that life does not need to move fast to be meaningful. The world has always unfolded one breath at a time, one sunrise at a time, one generation at a time. And long after we're gone, the things built with patience will still stand. Their stories become our anchor. Their endurance becomes our comfort. Their calm becomes our guide. As we travel deeper into the timeline of human history, we see that every ancient civilization carried its own rhythm, a pace far slower than the world we live in today. The people who built these cultures were not rushing from moment to moment. They observed the world carefully, trusted the patterns of nature, and built their lives around cycles that stayed the same for thousands of years. In their steadiness, there is comfort. In their patience, there is a reminder that our lives do not have to be hurried to be meaningful. In the highlands of Peru, the Inca Empire crafted stone walls so precisely that a blade cannot fit between the blocks. The stones were shaped by hand, moved without wheels, and fitted together through a deep understanding of balance and weight. These walls have survived countless earthquakes that toppled modern buildings. They stand today not because they were built quickly, but because they were built with intention. Each stone was carefully chosen. Each placement was guided by knowledge passed from elders to apprentices. When you look at Inca architecture, you see the power of steady, patient workmanship. It's a reminder that strength is often quiet and unhurried. Across the deserts of the Middle East, ancient travelers moved along the Silk Road, a network of routes that connected China to the Mediterranean for thousands of years. Caravans carrying silk, spices, jade, and glass moved slowly, taking months to cross thousands of miles. Along the way, merchants shared stories, ideas, languages, and traditions. Entire civilizations grew connected through these calm journeys. A merchant leaving Xi'an in China might spend half a year reaching the markets of Persia. Another might spend a year traveling toward Constantinople. Their journeys were long, but they were steady. And because of this steadiness, cultures blended in beautiful, lasting ways. The Silk Road teaches us that progress does not need to be rushed. It can unfold gently, step by step, across generations. North of the Mediterranean, the ancient Celts built stone circles that aligned with the movements of the sun. One of the most famous, Stonehenge, has stood for over 4,000 years. Its massive stones were transported from quarries miles away, using only simple tools and human cooperation. Yet those stones still mark the solstices with perfect accuracy. When the sun rises on the longest day of the year, it falls directly through the structure's alignment, just as the builders intended millennia ago. This kind of precision speaks to a deep connection with the natural world, a relationship based not on speed but on careful observation. The sun rises, the sun sets, and the rhythm remains unchanged. These ancient monuments remind us that nature has always been dependable. Far across the seas, the Polynesians navigated the vast Pacific Ocean using stars, waves, and wind patterns. They sailed in double-hulled canoes, crossing thousands of miles of open water with no maps and no instruments. They trusted in the sky and the sea, reading cloud shapes, feeling the pull of currents, and memorizing constellations. Their voyages were long and calm, carried by patience and an unfailing trust in natural patterns. These navigators connected islands scattered across an ocean that covers 1/3 of the planet. Their journeys show that even the greatest distances can be crossed slowly and steadily, guided by ancient knowledge. In Africa, the kingdom of Kush thrived along the Nile River just south of Egypt. Their pyramids, though smaller and steeper than those of the Egyptians, stand in the desert as sharp reminders of a civilization built on resilience. The Kushites ruled for centuries, blending their culture with Egyptian traditions while keeping their own unique identity alive. They crafted jewelry, pottery, and clothing with patterns that echoed the rhythms of the river. The Nile itself is a timeless presence, flowing northward for millions of years, bringing life wherever it moves. Civilizations rose along its banks not because they rushed, but because they understood the river's dependable nature. Across the Arabian Peninsula, ancient traders traveled through the desert at night, letting their camels walk steady paths while stars guided their way. The desert has always been a place of silence, where sand dunes shift slowly under the wind, and time seems to stretch. Civilizations like the Nabateans built entire cities out of rock, carving temples, tombs, and homes into the cliffs. Their most famous city, Petra, glows pink at sunrise and orange at sunset, untouched by the noise of the modern world. Walking through Petra is like stepping into a moment frozen thousands of years ago. It reminds us that beauty can last when it is carved with patience. In Europe, the ancient Romans built libraries where scrolls were copied by hand. Each letter was written carefully, one stroke at a time, in quiet rooms lit by oil lamps. A single scroll might take months to complete, yet scribes dedicated themselves to the work. Their patience preserved knowledge that would have been lost forever. Because of them, we know the thoughts of philosophers, the discoveries of early scientists, and the histories of kingdoms long gone. Their slow work safeguards human memory even today. On the African savannas, early humans studied the cycles of the moon, the migration of animals, and the patterns of the seasons. Their lives depended on noticing the small details. When birds began nesting, when fruit ripened, when rains approached. These observations became stories, and these stories became traditions that guided communities for thousands of years. Oral histories were passed down through generations with stunning accuracy, proving that human memory is powerful when it is respected and nurtured. In Japan, ancient craftsmen perfected the art of building wooden temples without nails. Their structures fit together through interlocking joints carved with mathematical precision. Some of these temples have stood for more than 1,000 years, surviving fires, storms, and earthquakes. Their endurance is a testament to a philosophy that values harmony, patience, and attention to detail. The builders worked slowly, often spending their entire lives honing a single skill. And because of this, their creations became eternal. Every ancient people in every corner of the world left behind something that whispers the same truth. The universe moves slowly, and there is strength in steady progress. Civilizations rise not through panic, but through small, deliberate actions repeated over time. The world has always rewarded patience. When we look at the long history of humanity, it becomes clear that anxiety belongs to fleeting moments, while calm and endurance belong to centuries. The stresses of today are temporary. The wisdom of the past is permanent. You are connected to thousands of years of human resilience, and that connection is bigger than any worry. As time moved forward, civilizations continued to develop in ways that felt almost organic, like plants growing toward sunlight. Nothing was rushed. Progress happened over centuries, shaped by quiet observation and the slow exchange of ideas. This is one of the most comforting truths about the ancient world. Nothing meaningful was built overnight. Everything that endured was crafted through patience, repetition, and a belief that steady work creates lasting results. In the valleys of the Andes, long before the rise of the Inca Empire, smaller cultures like the Chavan and the Nazca thrived for centuries. Their temples were aligned with the mountains, and their artworks reflected animals and natural forces. The Nazca lines, enormous shapes carved into the desert floor, can still be seen today from the sky. Their creators never saw the designs from above, yet they trusted in the process. They walked carefully, marking stones, creating lines that would last forever. These shapes have survived wind, sandstorms, and time itself. Their endurance shows that human creativity does not disappear. It leaves marks that the world carries forward. In ancient Persia, kings built gardens designed to feel like small replicas of paradise. These gardens were planned with flowing water, shade, fruit trees, and soft pathways. For the Persians, a peaceful garden represented the entire universe brought into balance. They believed that beauty and order could calm the human spirit. Visitors walked slowly through these spaces, listening to birds, feeling the coolness of fountains, and finding peace. Many of the world's modern gardens are inspired by these ancient designs, proving that calmness and harmony never lose their value. Along the Nile, beyond the well-known pharaohs, everyday Egyptians lived lives grounded in routine. Farmers woke with the sun, cooked meals using recipes unchanged for hundreds of years, and taught their children the same stories they had learned as kids. Families decorated their homes with symbols of protection and good fortune. Their lives were predictable and steady. The annual flooding of the Nile, which brought rich soil and fresh water, was so dependable that Egyptians based their calendar on it. Their entire civilization was built on the trust that nature would follow its cycle year after year. Across the Mediterranean, the Phoenicians sailed calm, steady routes across the sea. They built strong wooden ships and traveled to distant lands, not in a rush, but with confidence in the stars and the wind. They created one of the earliest alphabets, a writing system simple enough for merchants and sailors to use. This alphabet eventually inspired Greek letters, which then influenced Latin letters, which became the alphabet you are reading right now. A simple idea created thousands of years ago has shaped nearly every written language used today. This shows that the smallest innovations, when nurtured, can echo across history. Farther north in Europe, the Vikings navigated through icy waters with longships designed to glide smoothly over waves. Despite their fierce reputation, much of their daily lives revolved around farming, tending animals, crafting tools, and building strong communities. Families gathered in longhouses, warmed by fire, sharing stories passed down through generations. Their sagas, filled with voyages, courage, and exploration, survived through memory before they were ever written down. The ability of humans to preserve history through storytelling is one of the oldest traditions we share, a gentle thread that runs through every culture on Earth. In the ancient African kingdom of Mali, scholars gathered in the city of Timbuktu to study astronomy, mathematics, and medicine. Their libraries held thousands of manuscripts written by hand on smooth parchment. Students traveled from across the continent to learn from wise teachers who believed that knowledge should be shared slowly and thoughtfully. Lessons were not rushed. Ideas were discussed over long hours in shaded courtyards. These scholars trusted that understanding came gradually. Their work preserved knowledge that shaped generations. Across the islands of Southeast Asia, ancient cultures developed rice terraces on steep mountainsides. These terraces, carved over centuries, transformed rugged landscapes into beautifully layered fields. Water flowed gently from level to level, guided by stone channels and bamboo pipes. The farmers who built these structures worked with the land, not against it. They followed the natural curves of the mountains, creating something both practical and visually stunning. These terraces still feed communities today, a living symbol of harmony between people and nature. In the ancient Middle East, the city of Babylon rose with hanging gardens, towering gates, and massive ziggurats. The Ishtar Gate, decorated with glazed blue bricks and golden lions, stood as a symbol of strength and beauty. Even though the city has changed over time, parts of the gate still exist today, glowing with the same deep color created thousands of years ago. Babylonian astronomers charted the movement of planets with remarkable accuracy, observing the night sky with patience and curiosity. Their records helped shape the origins of modern astronomy. In the forests of Central Africa, the Kingdom of Benin built walls and moats stretching for thousands of miles, one of the largest earthwork systems ever created by humans. This was not built to impress outsiders, but to protect communities and support trade. Artists in Benin crafted bronze plaques and sculptures with incredible detail, shaping metal into scenes of daily life, royalty, and tradition. These artworks have survived centuries of change, carrying stories of a culture that valued skill and creativity. In the ancient world, time was not something people raced against. It was something they lived with, learned from, and respected. The pace of life allowed ideas to grow naturally. When we study ancient civilizations, we find calm in the slow unfolding of human progress. People built with care. They learned with patience. They lived with purpose. And their achievements remind us that life does not need to be rushed to be meaningful. As we move across the map of the ancient world, we see how each civilization formed its own relationship with time, nature, and knowledge. What they all shared, no matter how far apart they lived, was a deep understanding that life unfolds gradually. Their achievements show us that even the greatest accomplishments come from steady effort, not urgency. Their stories remind us that we are part of a long human tradition that values patience, resilience, and the quiet pursuit of wisdom. In the Arabian Peninsula, long before the rise of major empires, tribes moved across open deserts following the rhythm of the seasons. They traveled lightly, carrying their histories through poetry and spoken stories. These poems were memorized across generations with remarkable accuracy. Around evening fires, elders recited tales of courage, loyalty, and destiny. Their voices carried through vast landscapes where silence stretched for miles. These oral traditions became libraries of memory long before books existed. What survived was not written on pages but etched onto the hearts of those who listened. In the stillness of the desert, time felt wide, spacious, and forgiving. Far to the east, the Korean peninsula nurtured the kingdoms of Goguryeo, Baekje, and Silla. These cultures blended warrior strength with artistic refinement. Their temples, carved wooden statues, and landscape paintings expressed a harmony between humans and the natural world. Scholars studied Chinese philosophy while adapting it to local traditions, forming a cultural identity built slowly over centuries. The Korean Celadon pottery, with its pale green glaze, was crafted through a careful process of firing, cooling, and refining. Each piece required patience, and the result was calm, understated beauty that still captivates the world today. Across the northern steppes, the Scythians rode with the wind, their lives shaped by the movement of horses and herds. Though often described as fierce warriors, they were also skilled artisans. Their goldwork, etched with images of animals and flowing patterns, reveals a culture with deep artistic sensitivity. These treasures were buried in kurgans, enormous burial mounds that stilled at the grasslands. Inside these ancient tombs, archaeologists discovered clothing, tools, music instruments, and even preserved foods. These findings show that the Scythians, despite living nomadic lives, valued craftsmanship and beauty. They carried their culture with them like a portable world. In the jungles of Southeast Asia, the Khmer Empire rose with incredible strength, building Angkor Wat, one of the largest religious structures on Earth. Carved from stone and surrounded by wide moats, these temples were designed to mirror the universe. Each tower represented a sacred mountain, and the walls were decorated with thousands of intricate carvings. The builders spent decades working in intense heat, carving stone block by block, trusting that their effort would result in something timeless. Today, Angkor Wat stands almost unchanged, catching the golden light of dawn just as it did centuries ago. Its reflection in the surrounding water feels like a gateway to another world. In the lands of present-day Turkey, the ancient city of Çatalhöyük flourished even before the rise of cities like Babylon and Athens. This prehistoric community, built 8,000 years ago, had no streets. Houses were connected rooftop to rooftop, and people moved across the city walking gently from one home to another. Inside the houses, families decorated walls with paintings of bulls, hunters, and geometric patterns. These images, preserved across millennia, show that creativity existed long before recorded history. People found meaning in expressing themselves, in connecting with nature, and in telling stories through art. Even in these earliest days, humans sought comfort in creativity. In the cold northern lands of ancient Russia and the surrounding regions, early Slavic tribes built wooden fortresses surrounded by quiet forests and winding rivers. Their villages were simple, built with natural materials, and their traditions centered on seasonal rituals. Festivals welcomed the return of spring, celebrated the harvest, and honored ancestors. These communities lived at a pace dictated by nature itself. The forest gave them wood, the rivers gave them fish, and the winters taught them resilience. Their culture grew gently, like the slow rings inside a tree trunk. Across the African continent, the ancient city of Carthage stood as a powerful center of trade and innovation. Founded by Phoenician settlers, Carthage grew into a vibrant hub where ships from across the Mediterranean docked daily. Carthaginian sailors were explorers who ventured far beyond the familiar horizon. According to historical accounts, they may have reached the shores of West Africa, guided by stars and ocean currents. Their libraries held works of medicine, agriculture, and navigation. Through trade and travel, they connected cultures that might otherwise never have crossed paths. In Oceania, the people of Micronesia developed an extraordinary way of navigating the ocean using memory, intuition, and natural cues. They built stick charts, delicate frameworks of coconut fiber and shells, that represented wave patterns and islands. These charts were not maps in the modern sense. They were teaching tools used to train young navigators. Once memorized, the navigator carried the knowledge in their mind, not in their hands. This practice shows the incredible capacity of the human brain to adapt, learn, and retain complex systems. It also demonstrates the power of ancestral knowledge passed down slowly, generation after generation. In the Americas, the Mississippian culture built earthen mounds rising above river plains in the central and southeastern regions. Some of these mounds were taller than 10-story buildings. They served as platforms for temples, homes for leaders, and places for gatherings. These mounds reveal a world built on cooperation, community labor, and shared purpose. Entire villages worked together, carrying baskets of soil day after day, shaping their landscape through steady effort. The result was a society connected by faith, tradition, and the land itself. As we reflect on all these distant cultures, one truth becomes clear. Ancient people lived in ways that align closely with human nature. They took time to observe their surroundings. They built lives grounded in routine and community. They created art, architecture, and knowledge slowly and carefully. They understood that life unfolds at its own pace. And through this understanding, they found a sense of balance that feels rare in the modern world. When we look back on their achievements, we are reminded that anxiety thrives in fast, chaotic environments. But calmness grows where life is steady. Ancient civilizations show us what steadiness looks like. They show us that patience creates beauty, that consistency builds strength, and that time is not something to fight against. Across the vast stretches of time, humanity kept discovering new ways to map the world, understand the skies, and shape the land around them. What's comforting is that none of these discoveries arrived in a rush. They emerged slowly, like dawn rising over mountains. Every idea grew from the ideas before it. Every innovation was carried by countless hands. Every moment of progress was built step by step, through patient observation and gentle learning. This slow, steady rhythm is the heartbeat of civilization. In the lands of Mesopotamia, where the Tigris and Euphrates rivers flowed through fields of barley and wheat, ancient Sumerians developed some of the earliest systems of writing. They carved symbols into clay tablets, pressing reeds into soft surfaces before letting the tablets dry in the sun. These people documented their harvests, trade, myths, and calculations. Their writing was not rushed. Each mark was deliberate. Over time, the system evolved into a complex script that preserved stories like the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest tales we still have today. It reminds us that humans have always looked for meaning, and they expressed it slowly, carefully, through symbols that endured for thousands of years. In China, the Zhou dynasty developed philosophies that shaped the moral fabric of East Asia for centuries. Confucianism grew not from dramatic events, but from quiet contemplation about harmony, respect, and proper conduct. These teachings spread slowly from scholar to student, shaping families, governments, and communities. Laozi's reflections on balance and nature formed Taoism, emphasizing the importance of flowing with life rather than fighting against it. Both philosophies emerged from the same truth. Peace comes from understanding the world's natural rhythm. These ideas did not rush across the land. They spread gradually, carried by travelers, poets, and teachers who valued calmness over chaos. In the Indian subcontinent, ancient societies along the Indus River crafted cities with astonishing organization. Mohenjo-daro and Harappa had drainage systems, wide streets, standardized bricks, and peaceful neighborhoods. These cities flourished without kings, monumental temples, or massive armies. Instead, they were built on cooperation and careful planning. Every building was placed with intention. Every street followed a thoughtful grid. These ancient communities show that stability can be built through quiet consistency rather than force or speed. Moving west across the Mediterranean, ancient Greece emerged as a mosaic of city-states, each with its own traditions, governments, and ways of life. While Athens produced philosophers who debated under olive trees and wrote ideas that shaped Western thought, Sparta cultivated discipline, teamwork, and strength. Yet despite their differences, both societies valued structured routines. The Greeks studied stars, designed geometric patterns, sculpted stone, and built temples that aligned with the movement of the sun. Their achievements came through slow refinement, not quick leaps. Even their mythologies grew over generations of oral storytelling before being written down. Across the sea in Italy, the early Romans built roads that stretched across continents. These roads were laid stone by stone, following the natural curves of the landscape. Soldiers, merchants, travelers, and scholars walked these roads for centuries. The phrase, "all roads lead to Rome," grew from the simple truth that Rome believed in connecting people through steady, reliable systems. Their aqueducts brought fresh water to cities through gentle slopes engineered with incredible precision. These systems lasted so long that some still function thousands of years later. Their durability reflects a worldview that valued planning, patience, and long-term vision. In the rainforests of the Amazon, ancient communities developed complex societies without leaving behind stone monuments. Their achievements were written into the land through patterned forest gardens, carefully cultivated soil, and interconnected villages. They understood the rhythms of the rainforest more deeply than any outsider ever could. Their calendars followed the flow of river levels, animal migrations, and seasonal rains. Their knowledge, passed orally from elder to child, reveals how wisdom can grow quietly without needing to be carved in stone or written in books. In Australia, indigenous cultures developed the world's oldest continuous traditions. Their stories, known as Dreamtime stories, describe the creation of landscapes, rivers, and living creatures. These stories are passed from generation to generation with respect. They teach people how to live in harmony with the land and how to understand cycles that have remained unchanged for tens of thousands of years. Songlines, invisible paths across landscapes, connect sacred places through stories and melodies. Travelers followed these pathways using memory, rhythm, and intuition. Their navigation system was one of the most remarkable achievements in human history, built on listening, patience, and connection with nature. In the cold Arctic regions, the Inuit developed tools and knowledge perfectly adapted to ice and snow. They learned to read the direction of wind-carved patterns, navigate by stars hidden behind clouds, and build warm shelters from frozen blocks. Their kayaks, crafted from driftwood and seal skin, were engineered with unmatched precision. Their culture teaches us that human beings can thrive anywhere as long as they observe their environment with respect and patience. Back in Africa, the ancient kingdom of Aksum rose in the Ethiopian highlands. It became a center of trade connecting Africa, Arabia, and the Mediterranean. Its steely, towering stone monuments were carved from single pieces of rock and raised with incredible engineering skill. The people of Aksum developed their own written script, minted their own coins, and built strong communities anchored by faith and commerce. Their achievements were steady, consistent, and carefully built over centuries. Moving east once more, the island of Japan developed a culture that blended warrior discipline with artistic refinement. While samurai trained in martial arts and strategy, poets wrote haiku that captured the essence of a moment in just a few words. The art of tea preparation became a practice of mindfulness and intention. Every gesture, every tool, and every breath reflected a philosophy of slowing down and appreciating the present. Japanese culture demonstrates that daily rituals, even small ones, can bring grounding and peace. In the heart of Europe, the medieval period saw monasteries become safe havens of knowledge. Monks copied manuscripts by hand, sometimes spending hours decorating a single letter with gold and colored inks. Their libraries became treasure chests of ancient wisdom preserved through turbulent times. Meanwhile, farmers sowed crops in seasonal cycles, and blacksmiths crafted tools that would last generations. Life was guided by the turning of the seasons, each year following the same reliable rhythm. Across the Atlantic, the Aztecs built floating gardens known as chinampas. These islands, woven from reeds and soil, were anchored in shallow lakes. They created a sustainable farming system that provided food consistently throughout the year. The Maya, living farther south, developed calendars of astonishing accuracy. They tracked solar and lunar cycles with precision that modern science later confirmed. Their pyramids, rising above forests, were aligned with celestial events like equinoxes and solstices. These structures reflected a belief that the cosmos itself had a rhythm, one that humans could listen to and learn from. Everywhere we look across history, the message is the same. Life unfolds slowly. Civilizations grow layer by layer. Wisdom is carried forward not by rushing, but by repetition, tradition, and quiet dedication. The world has always rewarded patience. The universe has always moved at its own pace. And every culture that thrived did so by aligning with that pace rather than fighting against it. When you feel overwhelmed, it's worth remembering that humans have lived through countless challenges and uncertainties. Yet through all of it, people found ways to create beauty, build communities, and pass knowledge down the long chain of generations. You are part of that chain now, connected to the same resilience, the same strength, the same calmness that carried humanity forward for thousands of years. As the centuries unfolded, humanity kept shaping the world with steady hands and patient minds. Civilizations rose and fell, but their knowledge, their habits, and their wisdom never truly disappeared. They blended into the next culture, like streams feeding into a larger river. This gradual passing of ideas is one of the most comforting patterns in history. Nothing was ever fully lost. Everything was transformed, carried forward, reshaped, and made new again. In ancient Syria, the city of Ugarit developed one of the earliest written alphabets, a system carved into clay tablets. The symbols were simple enough for traders, scribes, and even ordinary workers to learn. This gave more people access to reading and writing, spreading literacy across regions that had previously relied on specialists. The clay tablets have survived thousands of years, preserved by the dryness of the desert. Their survival shows that even the smallest records, when made with purpose, can endure far beyond their creators. In Anatolia, the Hittites built massive stone fortresses with gates shaped like lions. Their chariots were engineered with lightweight wheels and strong wooden frames, designed for speed and stability. But beyond their military skills, they developed a legal system that emphasized fairness and restitution. Their laws reduced harsh punishments and replaced them with compensation. This approach influenced legal traditions that came centuries later. Their writings show a society that valued balance and reason over fear. Across the vast steppes of Central Asia, nomadic cultures like the Scythians lived in harmony with endless grasslands. They traveled with seasons, following herds and moving camps with practiced efficiency. They crafted intricate gold jewelry, delicate and artistic, despite living far from urban centers. Their clothing was designed for mobility, warmth, and durability. Their horses were trained to respond to subtle commands, allowing riders to move silently across open plains. These nomads shaped early trade routes through their knowledge of the land and their resilient way of life. On the islands of the Pacific, the Polynesians mastered navigation using stars, ocean swells, wind directions, and even the behavior of birds. Their double-hulled canoes carried families, animals, seeds, and tools across thousands of miles. Without modern instruments, they traveled from island to island with confidence. Their journeys were guided by memorized maps, stored entirely in the mind, passed from one generation to the next. Each voyage required calm concentration and trust in nature. This tradition created one of the greatest feats of exploration in human history. In India, the Maurya Empire rose under leaders who valued scholarship and stability. Ashoka, one of its most well-known rulers, carved messages into pillars of stone, encouraging kindness, peace, and moral living. These pillars were placed across the land, standing tall in open fields and near busy trade routes. The inscriptions remain clear even today, a reminder that moral guidance, once given, can outlast lifetimes. Scholars in ancient India developed advanced mathematics, including early concepts of zero and infinity. Their understanding of numbers shaped global science and engineering. In the highlands of Ethiopia, the kingdom of Aksum carved obelisks from single blocks of stone, some reaching over 70 feet tall. These monuments were created without cranes, steel tools, or modern machinery. Workers cooperated in teams, using ropes, levers, and sheer determination to position the towering structures. The engineering behind these monuments shows a deep understanding of balance, weight, and teamwork. Aksum also developed an early written script, Guizi, which is still used in religious traditions today. This continuity reflects human dedication to preserving heritage. Along the coasts of the Arabian Peninsula, traders navigated the Red Sea and the Indian Ocean with wooden dhows. These ships used triangular sails that allowed them to catch the wind from multiple angles, giving sailors more control and speed. Coastal towns became melting pots of cultures, where goods like spices, incense, and textiles were exchanged. The rhythm of trade created predictable patterns. Ships sailed with the monsoon winds, communities prepared for the seasons of arrival, and families built their livelihoods around this cyclical movement. This steady flow of commerce connected continents long before modern shipping existed. In ancient Korea, the Silla kingdom constructed observatories to study the stars. One of the oldest surviving observatories, Gyeomseongdi, was built with precise stone blocks arranged in patterns aligned with celestial movements. Scholars used it to track the changing seasons, predict eclipses, and guide agricultural planning. This observatory reflects a society deeply aware of the cosmos and its rhythms. Their calendars and records helped stabilize farming communities, ensuring that people planted and harvested at the right times. In Japan, during the early centuries, artisans mastered the craft of pottery and lacquerware. Their work focused on simplicity, balance, and natural beauty. Tea bowls were shaped imperfectly on purpose to reflect the idea that beauty exists in the unexpected. This humble approach created an artistic tradition that has influenced cultures around the world. The philosophy behind these objects shows that even everyday tools can become sources of calm and reflection. In the frozen Arctic, the Inuit developed tools and clothing perfectly suited for icy environments. Their parkas, made from animal skins and lined with fur, kept them warm even in extreme temperatures. Their kayaks were crafted with wooden frames covered in waterproof skins, allowing them to glide silently across icy waters. Every tool was designed with precision and purpose. Their deep respect for nature ensured that nothing was wasted. This balanced relationship between people and the environment allowed communities to thrive in conditions most would consider impossible. Meanwhile, in the rainforests of the Amazon, tribes built homes raised on stilts to avoid flooding. They used natural materials like palm leaves and hardwoods, crafting structures that blended seamlessly with their surroundings. Their botanical knowledge was extraordinary. They identified thousands of plant species and understood their uses for medicine, food, dyes, and rituals. This knowledge was carried orally, preserved through stories, songs, and teachings. It shows that wisdom does not always require written records. Sometimes memory and tradition are enough. In the Americas, before the rise of the Aztec Empire, the city of Teotihuacan soared with pyramids aligned to astronomical events. The Pyramid of the Sun and the Pyramid of the Moon were positioned with incredible precision, designed to reflect cosmic cycles. Thousands of people lived in carefully planned neighborhoods, each with its own courtyard, workshop, and temple. The city's layout reflected a desire for order and harmony. Even after its mysterious decline, later civilizations revered it as a sacred place. As time continued, the desire to understand the universe became a constant across cultures. People built observatories, counted stars, tracked shadows, and measured seasons. They learned through patience and repeated observation. This slow gathering of knowledge formed the foundation of astronomy, agriculture, engineering, and philosophy. The human story has always been shaped by curiosity carried out over long periods. Every civilization, no matter how distant or different, contributed something enduring. A ritual, a tool, a belief, a structure, a system of knowledge. And through these contributions, humanity created a shared legacy, connected story, a record of perseverance, creativity, and the quiet determination that has always guided progress. Across the hills and valleys of ancient Europe, cultures quietly refined their crafts over generations. In the lands that would later become Greece, long before the famous philosophers, small villages shaped clay into simple pots with swirling patterns that mirrored the movement of water and wind. These early designs show a deep awareness of nature, as if people were trying to capture the rhythm of the world in the curves of their artwork. Their pottery is still found today, perfectly preserved in buried homes and old storage rooms. It reminds us that even ordinary objects can become part of history when made with care. In Central Europe, the Celts carved symbols into stones and shaped intricate metalwork decorated with spirals. Their styles did not rely on straight lines or sharp angles. Instead, they focused on flowing patterns that seemed alive. These swirling shapes were found in jewelry, shields, helmets, and even wooden tools. The designs represent motion, growth, and life's natural cycles. They show that the Celts understood that change is constant, yet predictable, like the turning of seasons or the flowing of a river. Farther east, in the lands of the Slavs, early communities built wooden homes using logs fitted tightly together. They developed tools to harvest crops efficiently and stored grains in elevated containers to protect them from moisture. Their folk songs, some of which are still sung today, preserved stories of weather, seasons, and the spirit of the land. These traditions carried meaning across generations, allowing each new group to learn from the past. In the Himalayan regions, civilizations carved pathways into mountainsides, creating safe routes for traders and travelers. These paths connected remote valleys, enabling the movement of goods, traditions, and cultural practices. Prayer flags, set high in the wind, fluttered across ridges, their colors representing elements of nature. They carried messages of peace, hope, and balance. Even today, when these flags fade in the sunlight, it is believed that their messages continue to drift across the mountains with the wind. In the ancient Indus Valley, cities like Harappa and Mohenjo-daro were planned with remarkable precision. Wide streets formed perfect grids. Homes were built with baked bricks. Central wells and drainage systems ensured clean water and sanitation. These cities were far ahead of their time, showing that quiet innovation can lead to extraordinary comfort and stability. Their weights and measuring tools were standardized, which made trade predictable and fair. People lived routines that balanced work, rest, and community. In the mountainous Andes, long before the Inca unified the region, smaller cultures mastered agriculture in difficult terrain. They carved terraces into steep slopes, each level supported by stone walls. This technique preserved water, prevented soil erosion, and increased crop yields. These terraces were so well engineered that many remain usable today. Their longevity is a reminder that cooperation between people and nature can create systems that endure centuries. In Southeast Asia, the Khmer Empire constructed temples surrounded by moats that mirrored the night sky. Angkor Wat, one of the most iconic monuments, was built with symbolic meaning woven into every stone. Its layout reflected cosmic order, and its towers represented sacred mountains. Builders worked in teams for decades, carving details into every pillar and wall. The result was a monument not just of stone, but of collective dedication. In the Arabian deserts, Bedouin tribes developed deep knowledge of stars and sand. They navigated by reading the night sky, recognizing constellations that marked safe routes and hidden water sources. Their tents, made from woven goat hair, were designed to stay cool during the day and warm at night. The fabric allowed air to pass through gently, creating comfort in harsh environments. Their poetry captured wisdom passed orally through families, honoring courage, honor, and hospitality. In China, the Han Dynasty introduced paper, forever changing how humans shared knowledge. Before paper, writing materials were heavy or fragile. Once paper spread, scholars could record information faster, and ideas could travel farther. Libraries grew, histories were preserved, and scientific discoveries multiplied. This invention became one of the quiet foundations of global civilization. In early Mesoamerica, the Maya charted celestial movements with astonishing accuracy. They tracked the phases of Venus, predicting its rising and setting with precision that modern astronomers admire. They created complex calendars that helped farmers plan planting seasons, festivals, and community rituals. Their cities were built around plazas where people gathered, shared food, and told stories. This sense of community kept their culture connected across vast distances. In West Africa, the Yoruba people developed sophisticated artistic traditions using bronze casting. Their sculptures captured the dignity and individuality of kings, queens, and ordinary people. The attention to detail in their artwork shows a deep appreciation for identity and memory. Their oral traditions, rich with proverbs and wisdom, helped guide communities through challenges, reminding people to remain patient, thoughtful, and grounded. In the end, the story of every civilization reminds us that life unfolds at its own steady pace. Humanity grew not through hurry, but through patience, curiosity, and the quiet courage to keep moving forward. Just like those who came before us, we're all shaping our own small piece of history, one calm step at a time. And as you rest, let these timeless lessons settle in your mind, reminding you that you are part of a long, unbroken journey, a journey built on resilience, balance, and the simple power of taking things slowly.